Let's bring in Ed O'Keefe. He's a CBS News political contributor and a reporter for The Washington Post, and he joins us now. So, Ed, your paper was the first to report on the request from President Trump back in March, in which he apparently asked the Director of National Intelligence and the NSA Director to publicly push back on the FBI's Russia investigation. Walk us through the reporting and how you see the senators pressing coats on it today.
Well, it confirms that Trump not only tried to get Jim Comey to say that he was no longer the subject of an investigation, but was trying to get other government officials to speak out publicly and suggest that the president himself had nothing to do with this. To suggest that, once again, the president trying to put pressure on officials he had nominated or they had kept on, and trying to use essentially their credibility to help vouch for him here in Washington and with skeptics across the country. The fact that Coates had only been on the job a few days and Mike Rogers, the head of the NSA, both pushed back and said, no, that's inappropriate, we can't do it, is a sign that, they understand that the lack of, or the fact that they're not supposed to do this kind of thing. But what's telling, and how we found out, is that there are notes about this. Those notes are going to want to be the subject of investigation by lawmakers who have already been saying, if there are memos, if there are extemporaneous notes, let's see them, and let's make sure that that's part of the ongoing investigation into meddling by Russia and into perhaps improper behavior by the president himself. So it adds, frankly, to the paper trail that began with Jim Comey announcing through news reports that he had taken memos of conversations with the president. And it will raise questions still about who else at the White House perhaps was pushing people like Director Coates, and what else was being done to suggest that the president wasn't the subject of an investigation.
And the White House has responded, the White House saying that it won't comment on unsubstantiated claims based on illegal leaks. And they've said these leaks are part of a coordinated effort to damage the White House. Could we hear some similar messaging from Republican senators in this hearing today?
We've heard it already. There are Republican lawmakers all along who've said that part of all of this should be some kind of an investigation into who in the government or just outside the government is sharing this information with reporters. Remember, the Obama administration was the most aggressive in pursuing and prosecuting government leakers during the 8 years of the Obama presidency. We haven't seen the Jeff Sessions Justice Department take up this issue, but it's expected that at some point it will, and I know that colleagues across this city and those that deal with these issues are poised for the possibility of such investigations. But it's telling that these leaks continue despite the threats from the president and his senior staffers that they should stop and that they will be rooted out. It's a signal, perhaps, I'm not making assumptions, but often people who share information with reporters have an agenda, and clearly there are people in the government concerned with what the president was trying to do who feel compelled to get that information out publicly.
Ed, we learned yesterday that Michael Flynn intends to invoke the Fifth Amendment and refuse a subpoena from the Senate Intelligence Committee. How might that play into today's hearings?
I'd clear how it would play into today's hearing, given that this is a hearing broadly called to discuss global threats, and Coates oversees the various intelligence agencies. He didn't necessarily work always with Michael Flynn when he was National Security Advisor. But what it signals is that for whatever reason, Flynn doesn't want to play ball with the Intelligence Committee's investigation. That doesn't mean that they won't continue pursuing him, that they won't continue trying to get information from him. It also doesn't mean that Flynn is guilty of something. He simply is invoking his constitutional right to, at least for now, not participate. It's frustrating. I spoke with some Intelligence Committee members last night during a vote who said, we're going to continue to look into him. And frankly, they said it seems out of character for Flynn, who had in the past been very forthcoming with lawmakers in his position as security advisor, but also previously in the military. And they said this may just be a sign that he is lawyered up to the point where attorneys don't want him talking to Congress while a special investigation run by Robert Mueller is underway. We'll see. But either way, the investigation in the Intelligence Committee continues.
So there's so much news going on today, Ed. Lastly, this is something we probably would have been poring over if it wasn't for all the other stuff going on. But the White House has released its final budget, or is releasing its final budget proposal today. And it includes steep cuts to the social safety net programs like Medicaid. Can you talk about the fight that lies ahead now on Capitol Hill?
Always important to remember, Anne-Marie, that a president's budget proposal is immediately dead on arrival at the Capitol. The reason is it's always seen as a political wish list or a manifesto of what the president would do in a perfect world if Congress was playing along with him. They never do. And it's telling that last night Republican lawmakers were reminding reporters of that no matter what, a budget proposal shows up and is not going to be taken word by word and enacted into law. First of all, Congress hasn't really passed a budget in several years, so the idea that they'll do it this year, that would be miraculous. Certainly Republicans are pushing to do it, but it's going to require Democratic support, and Democrats are very upset with what the president's proposing. It's telling that several Republicans are also concerned with the president's proposed cuts to things like the children's health insurance program or cuts to Medicaid. Remember, part of the reason you're seeing such severe cuts in certain parts of the government, especially with social safety net programs, is that he vowed as a candidate not to touch Social Security and Medicare. Those are the two biggest drains on the federal budget, and yet the president told his team, don't touch them. So they had to go elsewhere to find cuts. They're seen as draconian by Democrats. They're seen as troubling by many Republicans. Either way, this budget, remember, whether it's a Republican president or a Democratic president, dead on arrival at the Capitol.
Dead on arrival. Remember that, Ed O'Keefe. Ed O'Keefe of the Washington Post, thank you so much.
Take care, guys.